Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Philly Phone Book, a podcast archive. I am your host, Gideon Caro McDonald, and with me today is a very important person in my life. She is a educator and a puppet maker and a production designer and a filmmaker and a costume designer and so many things. And she's my mother.
Yay.
Hi, Kat Caro.
Hi, Gideon McDonald.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Congratulations on graduating.
Yay.
Yay.
That just happened.
It did.
To those who want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing my podcast.
You're so welcome. This is exciting.
Yay. Well, I know you really well for reasons.
Right.
Hence you being my mother.
Right.
But you're not everyone's mother.
Thankfully, I am not.
So why don't we take this moment to have an introduction as to who you are,
Great.
what you do,
Great.
why you do it, and
Just start with the hardest question.
yeah, we'll deep dive into it later. But just like what people need to know right up front.
Great. I am always trying to figure out exactly what it is I do. I definitely am a production designer and educator at Philly PAC. I teach production design, advanced production design, costume design to our students. I also work with them for the actual production design sometimes. It's stuff that I'm making by myself. And I also do production and costume design for Humble Materials, which is a theater group of adults that, is based also out of Philly PAC. And I am, I guess, a multimedia artist.
Yeah,
In the rest of the time,
multi-hyphenate.
I guess I'm in a lot of spaces and also no spaces at the same time. I don't really know. But I like it. I like what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you do is cool.
Thanks.
Has art always been like the path? Like how did you start?
No. Good question. Well, art has always been there. Yes, for sure. But it was a race between art and science. I was very into biology. I was very into zoology. I was very into animal husbandry, conservation, things like that. And, in high school, I got very involved in art clubs, art honor society, things like that. And was very torn about college. And I sort of figured I can always go back to art. I can't necessarily always go back to biology. And I made the decision to go to Temple because of the existence of Tyler, knowing that I could sort of switch over if I felt like I wanted to, or I had access to those classes. And for biology. And of course, sort of never really used that. But I felt good about it at the time. And I've actually had a lot of jobs, but I've had a lot of jobs in the space between, sort of. I've always been interested in that space between, as you know, I worked at the Philadelphia Zoo. That's where I met your dad. And we worked in education there together. And I've worked in education sort of ever since, but the other half of it has changed ever so slightly.
Gotcha.
I worked at Fleischer Art Memorial for a little while. And,
shout out Fleischer.
Did like a terrariums class, so that was sort of like
I took that.
You did take that.
I took your terrariums class. That was awesome.
It was so much fun. So yeah, there's been a lot of spaces in between. But art went out. Art went out.
Yay.
I don't know how to... Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you ended up choosing Temple.
Choosing Temple.
That was where you first went
to
college.
Yeah.
Because you're not from Philly.
No, I am not.
So we could dive into that. I've been in Philly my whole life.
You have.
Hence your choice.
Yes.
But you are
I
not
have
from
not,
Philly.
yes.
You have not been in
That
Philly
is
your
correct.
whole life. I've learned a lot from this city.
Yes.
But you ended up making the choice to stay here
Yes.
and, you know, start your family here and
Yes.
have your work here.
Yep.
Why is that? Obviously, Temple has something to do with that. But I want to know, like, the journey that brought you here and why you've stuck around.
Great. Yeah. So I was born in New York City, and I grew up. When I was small, we were sort of outside of New York in the suburbs of New York. And then we moved to Newark, New Jersey, and we were there until I was in like 6th grade. And then we moved to Waymart, Pennsylvania, which is in Northeast Pennsylvania. So from Newark to Waymart was a lot of culture shock for me personally. It was a very, 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 very different vibe. And it was good to me. It was good for me, you know, high school and that was all fine. But it was definitely a different world. And I just never, I guess my heart or my soul never really wanted to be out of a city or that far from a city ever again. And New York is a lot of things, but it was never my city in the way that I lived there, you know, inside of New York. And I just had all of these other associations. It's where my dad always worked. It's when my grandmother was in the Bronx, you know, all of these other things. But for me, my story, it sort of never matched New York in a way that Philadelphia, when I came to visit, and so many people say, was just so much more accessible to me at that time and seemed to fit. And I was just really enamored of like South Street and all of the things that I think, you know, as a 18-year-old kid, like I was just like, oh, I could totally do this. I didn't drive. I didn't have a car. You know, SEPTA was there and easy. And I imagined it. And so I did it. And then everything else sort of just tumbled in after. But yeah, I've always really liked, you know, I think Philadelphia is a huge city, but it just, you never feel stuck here or you never feel trapped. Well, it's never been as claustrophobic to me, or like I've always felt like, oh, there's so many ways in and out, and it just feels like sprawling.
It's open.
Yeah. In a way that as a child going in and out of New York City all the time, it felt like you were in or you were out. I don't know how to. I think everyone understands what I mean by that, even though I don't have the words for it. But yeah, Philadelphia just felt accessible to me, and then everything else just fell into place.
Yeah.
The way lives do.
Right.
I guess.
Of course.
You know, our neighborhood, like, you know, I just literally moved into this house where we're recording.
Yeah, we're in our house. Well, we're in your house. I don't live here anymore.
You don't live here anymore.
My childhood home.
I lived here for 25 years, but I, you know, moved in because I looked at this place because it was close to South Street. Like,
oh,
I liked South Street. I thought it was.
Well, South Street was cooler.
It was cool, then. You know, but this neighborhood was definitely not what it is now, you know, in the way that it's become a very lovely place to have a family. But we were a little bit ahead of that curve, or at least in the beginning of that curve, you know, where the public school is so wonderful. And, you know, we had all of these resources that we sort of didn't know about at the time. It just really worked out for us. But yeah, it's been a lot of luck, maybe.
A lot of luck.
Yeah.
I agree because I agree with like the open sentiment.
Yeah.
Philly, and especially now in my life, having traveled to New York for, you know, musical opportunities and things that I've been able to do recently. Once you're in New York, it's like, oh, cool, New York.
Yeah.
And everywhere I turn, it's New York.
Yeah.
And then once I leave, I'm out of New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't really feel that with Philly.
I mean, literally, right? It's an island, right?
Yeah.
You're
true.
so intensely aware of the fact that, like, you have to cross in, you have to cross out.
Big tunnel.
You know, I mean, I guess, unfortunately, the reality of the world is post 9/11. You're so intensely aware of what it would feel like to be inside or outside. You know, like, there's there's just this different feeling about like I'm in or I'm out. And like as a kid crossing the George Washington Bridge, like, going to grandma's house all the time. Like it was very like, I don't know. There's just something about like the bridge in, the bridge out. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of bridges here, but
lots of bridges, but they're all bridges outside of Philly.
Right. Or to Jersey.
Or to Jersey.
Or to other, you just kind of ooze out.
Right. Because Philly is just this one big thing.
Yeah. If you had to walk out, you could.
Yeah, you could just walk everywhere. It's so walkable.
Yeah.
And I find it wonderful that Philly feels like a lot of different places.
Yes.
Like every part of Philly feels different.
Yes.
Like South Philly feels different than North Philly.
Yes.
And like Center City feels like its own world.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that same like gravity or like daunting change that like the boroughs do in New York. Because it's like you got to go an hour this way with a bridge and got to drive there. It's everything. Got to drive there. With here, it's like you get the mixing pot, but you also feel like
it's a different scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially with art making.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted to stay.
Yeah.
It's because like it's also accessible and it's not like this is Broadway and then this is where they do off Broadway. It's just like theater happens.
Yeah.
Art happens. There's art shows everywhere. There's art school everywhere. There's murals everywhere.
Yeah, the most, I think.
There's probably a fact there. Fern, check that fact.
There's definitely a fact.
Editor's note. Hey guys, Fern here, fact-checking as requested. Philadelphia is indeed known as the mural capital of the world, with over 4,000 murals created in the city. Mural Arts Philadelphia started as an anti-graffiti program in 1984, but is now the nation's largest public art program and has grown into an international leader. So yes, the most would be accurate.
And I think, and especially the arts community, having been in the arts community for quite a while now, it's relatively small. Yeah. A lot of the incredible people that I know, even in different disciplines, know each other. Very often because of University of the Arts. Or, similar programs where people just know each other and stay in contact and still continue to collaborate. And that's always been very, very cool.
Yeah. It's gotten me jobs.
It's gotten you jobs.
It's gotten you jobs.
It's gotten me jobs. Gotten us jobs. Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then you're in Philly. You study at Temple.
Yep.
And then you're like, cool, art, pivoting.
Ish.
Uh-huh. When did that really like sit in? Was it PAC? Was it PAC like the big like shift?
No. So, well, I had you.
So true.
And I made the choice to stay home with you.
Right.
And we actually had our house renovated.
Yeah.
And when the major renovation was happening, we moved out. This is when you were like 1, I think. We moved out into your dad's uncle's like garage apartment.
Uncle Tom.
And we were there for a little while. I don't remember how long. It might have been, 2 months, maybe 3 months, I think. And while we were there, we had a lovely time. We were in a tiny little apartment, you and I, most of the time because your dad was working. But and there were a lot of black widow spiders outside.
Oh,
so we didn't go outside that often. Like we did.
Lot?
There were a lot. I mean, how many is enough to say it's a lot? There were
a lot.
There were black. But so anyway, we were, you and I, we were always very busy. We did stuff. But that was also the time where I just sort of like found online communities that I became part of in my free time, spare time, just while you were there, while we were together. And I got really into the Blythe doll and ball joint doll community. And I was on LiveJournal. Like I've been on all of the social medias. But it sort of became a way for me to have a community, connect with people, sort of keep track of the days and start projects. And from that, I began sewing for dolls,
Right.
customizing dolls, and I had a website, and
You made a shop.
I had a shop. It was beautiful. I miss that website. It was incredible. Manning Kroll made that website for us. This is an aside. I'm sorry.
No,
I have
that's
to.
fine, please.
There used to be an incredible vegan pizza shop, Gianna's, around the corner on South Street. And we were vegetarian then, and we used to get like vegan cheesesteaks from there that were delicious.
Whoa.
But we were in line behind this cute little punk kid, and he was talking about how he made their website for the pizza shop in exchange for pizza. Like he was literally there getting his awesome. Like weekly pizza or whatever. And they were, chatting, and he was cool. And so I went to the pizza website and found his name, because back then when you made a website, your information was on there. It was made by a certain person, and then you go to their website. Like it was all connected. And so I found him through them, and then he was like local little cool guy, and we met, and he like built our website for us, and it was gorgeous. And it's no longer my website because of the world and my own need to update it. And he moved, and whatever. But it was it feels like forever ago now, considering the way the internet is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was stories, it was pictures, and yes, I used to like sew clothes and basically release them in like collections and drops, and it was a small world, but people used to pay a good amount of money for tiny little clothes. They would send their dolls to me, and I would paint them and customize them and send them back. And these are like big Asian ball joint dolls that are becoming more popular now, I think, because of Instagram. Like back then you had to find the communities, and it was all forums and stuff. And Blythe dolls also were a vintage doll in America, but then they caught on in Japan in the early aughts. So I did that, and then I got a few jobs painting prototypes from that.
Cool.
And making prototypes. Ashton Drake contacted me, and I painted some dolls for them. Like I painted the, sample that they would send.
Yeah.
And I worked on rag dolls that were sold at Hot Topic for a while. I like designed those. So,
whoa.
Yeah, it was kind of,
I didn't know that. That's cool. I didn't know about the Hot Topic thing. That's cool.
Yeah. Doom dolls, they were called. I like designed them, and it's, that's actually, when I was taking pictures and doing all of that work, that's when I taught myself everything that sewing. I bought a sewing machine. I taught myself how to sew. And, but I learned Photoshop when I was doing that, because everything was hand drawn, but then I would, try to clean it up and make it look real. So yeah, I did that for a while. So there was a lot of like odd jobs, freelance jobs,
side hustles.
Yeah, totally. That I was having a lot of fun with. And then, I followed you.
Yep.
Because, that's when I also had the Fleischer job later. And a lot of it was like after school stuff. I did summer camp at Taller, Puerto Riqueño. That was like cool. We made puppets for the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Yeah. So it was a lot of like this and that. And then, yes, when you were interested in taking dance classes at PAC, you did one show, which was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I was an Oompa Loompa.
You were a hip-hop Oompa Loompa.
I was neon.
Beautiful.
It was like
incredible.
Black light, neon Oompa Loompa dance.
And as she still does, at the end of that show, Jess announced the next show, which was going to be Neverending Story.
Right.
And I felt compelled to email her. And I did also know Kelly, who at the time was making costumes.
Right.
So I felt compelled to email Jess and say, hey, you're doing this thing. And if you ever need someone to work on big puppets or oversized things, like I would love to. And she said yes. And why I thought I could do that is still kind of, I mean, I was already making Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
I was already making puppets.
We were Halloween celebrities.
Yeah.
We still are.
Yeah, we still are. We have a great Halloween party every year. We made puppets.
Yeah.
Together, you and I. So again, I just was like, hey, I think I can do this. And, turns out I could.
You totally could.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
You were so compelled by wanting to make Falcor.
Well, yeah. I mean, can you imagine?
I don't blame you.
Because also like at this point, pack shows were so many things, but like, and Natalie, of course, was doing the production design then.
Right.
And she would sort of come in right before the show and make beautiful things. But there weren't, I just couldn't. I don't even know what Jess was planning on doing, honestly, like, which is funny.
Oh, wow,
I should ask her. Because maybe it was probably costumes, right? Probably
like a mask or something.
Yeah, that's what it would have been. But I wound up making Rockbiter and Falcor and Morla in the basement of then Pack. I would go during the day and just work in the cold, dark basement.
That basement was scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying. It was awful.
It's a little corner building on 4th Street.
Yeah.
That's now a plant shop.
Yeah, currently Walter Pine Studios.
Yeah.
But I did that, and it was crazy. It was so much fun. It was cool. Like, you were one of the puppeteers.
Yes, I was.
Thinking back, of course, there's a lot of things that we've changed about our process but it was the start of something, and just, working with Jess has been like, it's this ever changing, but also it stays the same. Like, we have this shared language, the things that excite us, they're the same, so, we just kept working together. And after that, I actually started sort of making pieces on commission for her. It would be like, there was Oz, and I built Oz, the 4 faces of Oz, or a few costumes here and there. But then once Pack moved into its current location on Moyamensing, she brought me in during summer camp, and I was still just working by myself, but with kids around. And so, the kids started to work with me or get pulled into the process. And we kind of figured out very quickly, like, oh, this is a much, much better way of doing this.
Was that Little Mermaid?
That was Little Mermaid. Yes,
it was.
Yes. Which I believe might have been also when you started teaching or
that was
assisting.
Yeah. Because I was in high school at the time, and I had already done about 4 pack shows, I think, or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I was too cool for it, and I was done.
Right.
I felt like I aged out of it.
Yeah.
And then I started focusing on like the Meredith musicals.
Yeah.
Because that was like 7th grade, 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then that summer of like, I think going into high school, I don't exactly remember the year.
I definitely have it all.
Yeah. You got brought in, and then because of that, Jess offered me an assistant job.
I mean, I don't think it was because of me, but
concurrent. We were both going.
Yeah, it was the same. Yeah, we wound up going in together. Yeah.
Because Jess had often taken previous students and been like, "Do you want some work?"
Well, that was actually sort of the beginning.
It was the start of it.
It was you and
Sabrina Fierro,
and Rebecca. Yeah, they were the first ones, I think.
I believe so.
Because the program was finally old enough to have kids that were old enough
and still doing theater.
Yes, exactly.
Because we had a lot of people that were in our classes that just decided that they wanted to do other stuff because you're so young.
Yeah, and that's what most kids do.
Yeah. But then the ones that stick around, Jess noticed them.
Yeah.
And then offered me that little bit of a summer job, and then I literally didn't leave. I just kept coming back.
We keep coming back.
And here we still are.
Yeah. Yes. So, that turned into 1 class, which turned into 3 classes, sometimes 4 classes.
Yeah.
And I think the design element of our program is very unique.
Yes, it is.
And it's a big part of what makes our shows look like our shows, feel like our shows. Obviously, Jess's input, her vision, her writing as very often now, the music choices, all of those things combined together. And we've got a pretty cool program.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any children's theater in the area that does what we do.
No.
Like at all.
No, we are for sure the weirdos.
We're the weirdos.
And we're so happy to be that because kids are weird. Kids love to be weird.
Yeah. And then you give them an animal head.
Oh my
they
goodness.
Go crazy.
You give it, you give a kid a puppet, you give them an animal head. And that's become like the hallmark of my work because everything I do is for kids. So number one, it has to be easy to manipulate. It has to be light. If it falls, it can't hurt anybody. It has to be, all of those things come first, and then I design around that. So, I think a lot of things are very simple. Like I love to use recycled material. Yep. I like to use...
You're a cardboard warrior.
I love cardboard. I love, and a lot of times they do get recycled after, or I take them apart and turn them into something else, much to the kids' horror, but they also think it's funny. We've had eyeballs that have been in several different puppets. But yeah, and I think that that's important to show the kids too. I've had a lot of them who then go home and will pull some cardboard out of the recycling bin and make something for themselves because they see how easy it is to do. And I think art should be accessible. I think it should be free and easy. And I like a challenge. Almost every show I usually give myself a material, a theme, a color. I try to stay within like a particular language choice. And then we sort of stick with that, and it sort of narrows it down and makes it interesting for the kids to look at and to sort of teach them these basics of design and production design, because we are essentially a white box. It's a white box theater. Like, we don't have a lot of the, what would you say? I mean, we don't have
like the glitz and glam.
Yeah, I mean, it's very basic, but in a way that I think sort of highlights, what we can do with it. Like, what can we do with it? How can we transform into our little world this time? And I think that there's something really, really beautiful in that simplicity, I think.
Yeah. This experience with PAC, having been there for a minute now.
Over 10 years.
Over a decade.
Yeah.
Your art and your approach to it has also evolved.
For sure.
Because you started with these big scale puppets. Hilarious way to start.
Good, yeah.
These huge puppets.
Yeah.
Now leaning more into not only that.
Yeah.
But our sets.
Yeah.
And our props.
Yeah.
And our costumes.
Yeah. Somehow I do more, not less, right?
Yeah.
And we do two shows every semester, which is 4 shows plus our summer shows.
So that's about 5 to 6 shows a year.
Yeah, plus Humble. So somehow, yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
And it's still just you back there. It's still just you in the basement.
Thank you for saying that. It's some days it definitely is, just me. And what's funny is that you'd think that I would figure that out, but in a lot of ways, the kids have met my challenge.
Yeah.
Like we are at a point where they have touched everything. I can honestly say that, they've touched it.
Which is such an awesome place to be.
Oh my God. Yeah. And in a way that I think I wish, and I am trying to get better. I'm sort of, it's so hard to keep track of everything and then also document. But I'm actually working on a reel right now just to share with everyone, like, for every costume piece, we've had so many little hands that are tracing the pieces, cutting the pieces. And just that, is a challenge for some kids. Like just tracing 60 circles, cutting 60 circles out when I only have them for an hour a week.
Right.
I only have them for 15 hours over the semester. And then, things like the doors or the goat heads, like from the shows we just did, like, I'll have one class put on a base coat and then another class will do, we're passing projects back and forth. And they all touch it. They all get involved. One class might have cut the fabric. Another class might have added the, eyes, and it winds up being collaborative. in a way that maybe not a lot of other things are for them right now,
Yeah.
you know, and it's very cool to see suddenly everything just appears.
I think it's lovely that our program allows for kids to discover that they like doing that at such an early age.
Yeah.
Especially those that are interested in theater.
Yes.
Because that's always the core thing with PAC students is that they're there because they love theater. They want to be on stage. They want to be a part of something big. They want to, you know, do that sort of dream.
Yeah.
And then, especially having grown up in the theater scene and then now doing it professionally.
Yeah.
It's real that there are people that do theater their whole lives and then only later in life, like in college or even after, realize that like, oh, crew is what I want to do.
Oh,
I want to be backstage. I want to be doing that kind of thing. And then that's when college, you're allowed to like figure that out and understand it.
Yeah.
And do the design thing.
Yeah.
For the people on stage.
Yeah.
Because you're still the cog in the machine.
Right.
And an even more important cog in the machine in a lot of senses.
Yeah.
But with PAC, they get to do that so early. They get to just be like, yep, I want to be a designer. I want to figure it out. I want to have fun. I want to make a puppet. I want to make a costume.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really think there's a lot of programs that get kids to do that so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, it's so enriching because it allows for our productions to feel like professional productions on the scale of them.
Right.
On a child scale.
Right.
There are children actors and crew and runners and designers and instrumentalists sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is so wonderful because it feels like a real show.
Right. And it's been fun. It's fun because especially as my class offerings sort of have grown, we've had kids who started out, you know, maybe in musical theater and have moved into my class.
Yep.
Or we've had kids that go the other way, start in my class and they, hey, I also want to perform. You know, we have a lot of kids who do both.
Yep.
But we are starting to, which I'm very proud of, is we're starting to pull kids who have no interest in performing.
Yeah.
And are very excited to just, you know, share in the excitement of backstage. And I think it's important, you know, because that's also me.
Yeah, that's what you do.
I have no desire to be on stage at any point. And I think, you know, but I do think that being around theater creates a sort of flexibility and an ability to react quickly and to work in a big team and to sort of, it's so many skills that I think everybody can use. So even being backstage, you absolutely get that same energy and excitement and the thrill of the show and everything went well and the applause, you know, and we're also really good. Like, you know, you and I know, like we've actually had my design kids come into the class that they're costuming and show the kids the costumes that they made. And the little kids get to say, thank you. And like, just that moment is so incredible.
It's really important.
They really, you know, they have the agency and they understand like, oh, I am contributing in an important way. And if I don't do my part, you know, I'm letting these kids down. Like it's a shared excitement that I think is so cool. And like, we have now developed this group of kids who feel they are responsible. Like they feel so responsible for the props, for the sets. Like, they run through that place like they own it, you know, because they do.
Because
like they know what they're doing.
They know it better than we do.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And that's incredible.
Which is such an important and like valuable skill that they will now have going into maybe an artistic career. Right. Especially our older kids.
Right. And even if not, you know, you've learned teamwork,
social skills.
There's so
responsibility.
Yeah. And like, you know, just like everything else, you know, arts education in America, like has been under fire for a long time, you know, and we do see arts programs getting cut first, you know, we do see, and like, just to have kids be able to paint, to cut, to draw, you know, unfortunately, you know, in a more online, in a more technologically based world, you know, using our hands, our fine motor skills, like, you know, even the tedious tasks, I find like that's an incredible thing that, you also have to develop the skill to work on one thing for a long time.
Because attention span is different.
Yeah, it's just different. And we, it's important for us to stay relevant and give them what they want, but also like to challenge them and to say like, hey, I think you can cut out 10 circles right now. I think you can do it. You maybe don't want to, but I promise it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And there's a quiet that comes over the room and the kids when they're really in it, and it's cool. Like it's a lot of fun to be around that energy. Yeah.
It's so important.
It's so
especially
important.
Right now. And getting to experience this like generation of artists so early.
Yep.
As often as we do.
Yeah.
Is so nice.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gives me a lot of optimism.
Yes.
And confidence.
Yes.
Because, with funding cuts and things like that, especially, being in the theater scene right now.
Oh, yeah.
I feel it. I see it. I hear it.
Yep.
Especially from like colleagues of mine and mentors of mine.
Yep.
And so then having this opposite end of it where it's like, these are the people that are just doing it for fun.
Right.
These are kids that just want to do it.
Right.
And it's not their livelihood.
Right.
They're just showing up after school.
Right.
And they get to just make something that they're really proud of.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
So come see a pack show.
Come see a pack show.
That's the moral of this. It's part of it.
Yeah, they sell out,
They sell out so quick, so you got to jump on it.
You got to jump on it. But they're beautiful. They're beautiful and they're fun and they're accessible. They're incredible.
Would you say that theater has been something that's been in your brain, like artistically before this, or it just kind of happened?
No,
because of me.
No.
Because of that opportunity, because you sort of found this wonderful job. Theater's never been like anything in your brain before? Like,
no, definitely not.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely not. In fact, to be very honest with you, I have this sort of essential opposition to how ephemeral theater is, right? The idea that something happens and it's gone is literally the opposite of what I'm trying to do all of my other waking moments. Like, because, visual art is trying to capture something forever and keep it. So it's been hard. It's not been hard. That's not right. But it's been such a huge adjustment. And I know that my brain is different now because I also sort of, made my things and handed them off and sort of stayed away. And even now, like, when we're down to showtime, like my job is sort of done. Yeah. I observe, and I get to take pictures, which I love. But I work on a different time scale all the time. Like I've been working and then I'm done. And when it's, time to go. So yeah, but because of PAC, because of Humble Materials, even because of my own projects, I have begun to think about it very differently because of as this sort of really incredible other way of creating an experience. Yeah. As opposed to I want to say product, but that's not the right word. But, as opposed to creating an object or
permanent.
Yeah. The permanence versus the impermanence, and even finding something in between. Like, for example, we made the film.
Yeah. I was just about to bring that up. Yeah. Like on this opposite end of like this is permanent work.
Right.
We made a film. It exists.
We made a film. And in fact, you could almost even argue it's the opposite in the same way. Whereas once it's done, that's when its life begins for everyone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to theater, when once it's done and you cry and you're sad about it. But, so it's a very different way of thinking about things. But even when we did make the film.
Made of Paper,
which is a beautiful short puppet film that was written by our friend Monica Flory.
Love you, Monica.
An incredible, basically a poem, right? I feel like
it's a poem.
It's a poem. It's a fairy tale. It's a sad little beautiful story. But even when making that, like, because Monica is a playwright, first and foremost, we did talk about it being, a play. We talked about it kept evolving. What is this thing? the interplay between film and play and theater, and we had live puppetry, but in the film. So it's sort of this beautiful hybrid. But when we had the premiere, we still had a dance and a puppet, a puppet dance, I guess, which Jess Noel generously choreographed. So it's all the same thing to me now, or the channels between them aren't really as exist. They don't really exist anymore. Now it's a possibility now in a way that it never, ever was.
Would you say that after having done the film, now that it exists?
Yes.
And then also still continuing to learn with theatrical shows, making puppets for both. Would you approach making a film differently than you did when you had done it before? Like you made the puppets intended to be puppeteered live for the camera.
Yes. Yes.
But also for the stage, right?
Yes. Well, yes, because they were the same to me.
They were the same to you. Are they a little different now? A little, like, would you want to do something differently now that you've seen what you're capable of for film?
I would want to do something differently, but I always want to do something differently.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
Because Monica and I actually made a previous film during lockdown.
Right.
Because of Dragons, which was paper puppets. And that was also live puppetry, but not as sort of overtly as made of paper, where the performers, you could see their faces and had expressions. I'm still very interested in stop motion. Stop motion puppetry sort of calls to me. But, I think puppetry as an art, like I think because of PAC, like the idea of seeing a puppeteer to me is still a little more interesting than not, even, and as much as you do see them or don't see them, I think just hiding a puppeteer is not where my heart is, because the performance of it is just as beautiful as potentially the puppet or the story. And when you see a puppeteer and the puppet and you still get lost, to me, that's like...
It's successful.
It's the most incredible. Yeah, that's the sweet spot.
And we did that with Made of Paper.
I think so. I think so.
Because I remember doing it because I played the crow and I did the narration for it, but I also performed the puppet of the crow.
Yes.
But it was important to you and Monica that I was visible. And I remember... like doing certain moments of that and being like, all right, I'm going to hide here.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Which then obviously plays into this like magic of the stage.
Yes.
And I think it still definitely translates.
Yeah.
And isn't often done in film.
No.
Like now really that I'm thinking about it, like there's not really often moments where I'm like, oh, there's the puppeteer.
Right.
They really work hard to hide them.
You really do. Yeah. Especially live puppetry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be green screens. It would be, yes. And I think that that's about trusting your audience, or making something so outside of, just trying to make something new. You have to trust that people, even if they don't understand exactly what you're doing, right. I think there's beauty, in puppeteering that, I think there's not enough of that. That's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll keep making more of it.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to. Yay. Like I said, I always want to make something completely different, though.
Right. So we'll see what that ends up being.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
With your experience with film, having been on the other end of it, now I'd like to ask a question about when you're purely a consumer. This is a question I ask everybody. What is your favorite film? Top of your head. First one.
No. Yeah, I know. It's funny because the thing that I have started to ask in response to, these conversations is, is it really good, or were you 12? But no, the real answer is The Dark Crystal by Jim Henson, because it changed my brain. So yes, because I know I was actually younger than 12, but because it was, this fully puppet, not funny, not silly, not musical fantasy story that, he dared to make, that wasn't received well at the time.
Not at all.
I think one thing that's hard to explain to your generation is like, as a child, well, first of all, like my dad knew that I am the Jim Henson generation, if anything, right? Like every single thing that he did, I was into at the time. I grew up on Sesame Street. We watched The Muppet Show, weekly, and even later, the Jim Henson Hour, Storyteller. I watched all those things, on television. And so my dad knew, if it was Jim Henson, he would just set the VCR to record. So, the Dark Crystal, he recorded, and would just, it's a Jim Henson thing, here you go. And it's like, what is this? Because it is slightly, and it's funny, I've rewatched it very recently, and like, it really is kind of horrifying.
Oh yeah.
And even just, it's not, is it Uncanny Valley when it's a puppet? Not really. But even like the Gelfling puppets are like, there's just something, they're not quite.
They're a little off.
They're a little, in a beautiful way, but in a disturbing way. But it's definitely the edge of that. It wouldn't be made ever again, right? There's no way. In fact, they made the TV series, but like there would be a funny sidekick. There would be, more comedy added. They would cater to children or try to figure out who's the audience, who is this for, in a way that just didn't happen at the time. It was this slightly horrifying, not for children specifically, but also not for children. And it was beautiful, and it really changed what I thought of as being possible, like just all at once. Because I was also like, again, because of, a child, I was in the 80s, like fantasy was huge, you know?
Yeah.
And I loved most of those properties, but they all looked like a certain thing, they were all like
Star Wars was Star Wars.
Right.
Lord of the Rings was Lord of the Rings.
Right. Like, I mean, I'm talking about like Conan the Barbarian.
Oh,
and, those, like that genre of like man in a loincloth. But, which I loved. But this was a different world. And everything in it there's not a human person in it. They're just not in there at all.
Yep.
Nothing is recognizable as being, something we know of. The plants, every inch of the world has been fabricated by hands. And I think even as a kid, you just feel that so intensely. Like they created every inch of this. None of this existed in any way. They made these puppets, then they costumed them, then they gave them worlds and palaces, and all of it was so tactile that it affected me very strongly. Like, wow, in the way that you just sort of want to be in it or you want to touch it. So yeah, and it was just like a different level of puppetry, and it was fascinating to me.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Dark Crystal, I mean, you showed it to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Scared of it at first.
Of course.
When the
Emperor crumbles.
I feel like that anybody that's seen the movie knows that's
it happens
the thing.
Very quickly.
Very early. It's
terrifying.
The movie has like so little dialogue as well. Like it's just creatures and things
when they
existing.
tear the clothes off of Chamberlain and excommunicate him, every part of it, and then it has a happy ending, but you don't even get to sit in it. Like you don't even get to experience the happy ending for more than a minute, and it's this tale of like the genocide of these people. Like it's horrible. Everything about it is terrible.
It's horrible, but it's so gorgeous. And like
nothing like it.
Even the scene of all of the Skeksis just eating. At their dinner table, just eating a meal for way too long.
Way too long.
Like, I even remember, I feel like Jim Henson wanted that scene to be longer. Learning about that movie and learning about Jim Henson as a clear and obvious inspiration to both of us. That was the project that sat in his brain forever. He just started to draw these like wacky, wild things.
Well, no, Brian Froud did.
Right. He drew them. Yes. Right. Sorry.
Which is actually even more interesting, right? Because he knew that he did have the story, and then but then he handed over the design of the thing
exactly
to this other artist. Like, the thought of doing that is like insane, because that's why nothing looks like a Muppet. Nothing, because they're
someone
not.
else.
Yeah,
it's someone else. And he worked so hard.
to make
that movie. He didn't care. How well it was going to do. He wanted it to do well.
Yeah.
He wanted it to do well, but it was just an artistic expression that he had never done before. That he was just like,
and threw everything in.
Do it.
Yeah.
And threw so much money into it.
Yeah.
And so many people.
Yeah.
And it's so gorgeous. And I'm glad that it has the love that it has now.
Yeah.
And I wish he could see that.
Yeah.
But yeah. So cool. Go watch Dark Crystal.
Go watch The Dark Crystal. Yeah, the TV show, the show was really good too. But again, that got canceled, and it was so beautiful, and again, so tactile, but there was still CGI, and there was still like a little bit of funny sidekicks, and even famous people voices, right? Like I feel like that's something that wasn't a thing early on. But
I have all my opinions about celebrity voice actors.
I'm sure you do.
I think that there's a art form behind voice acting and puppeteering that I think, Muppet Projects especially celebrated.
Yeah.
Where, you were creating a character, right? Like when you think of SpongeBob,
right,
you don't think of Tom Kenny.
No.
You think of SpongeBob.
Right. That's how it should be.
Yeah. When you think of Kermit, you don't necessarily have to think of Jim Henson. Obviously, they're together in people's brains now, but that wasn't the goal. Kermit lived alone. He is a celebrity to this day.
Right.
Because as the actor, you bring life into the character.
Yeah, it was separate.
It's the same with animation.
Yeah.
Now with these big scale animated movies or even cartoons where they're like, all right, John Cena's in this one. Right. It's like nobody cares about the character anymore. They care about the voice actor.
Well, yeah. Is it the studios that think that people care, or is it people really caring? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's a lot about how things get made and funded. But I agree completely.
Yeah.
I agree completely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think because you can also sort of see what happened with the response to Dark Crystal in the creation of Labyrinth, because that is so much more, I think, traditionally speaking, family friendly, still absolutely incredible, of course, David Bowie, there's no question. Maybe even more watchable, quite honestly, right? Much more fun, much more.
There's a clear story.
Yeah.
There's a clear goal.
Yeah. A banging soundtrack. But you can sort of see we have to go. We do have to sort of cater to this slightly more family friendly audience. But the idea of scary puppets or disturbing puppets is never too far from, my brain, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't get a lot of opportunities to make scary puppets.
No, and they're scary. People are very, it's very easy to do, actually.
Right. People are inherently scared of puppets.
Right.
There are a lot of people
a lot of scary
that see puppets and they're like, no, thank you.
And Muppets have really informed what we think of when we imagine a puppet, but it is still a very specific, version of what they can be. But yeah. It's easy to scare people with puppets.
Super easy to scare people with puppets. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, growing up in this house with your studio upstairs.
Yeah.
I feel like, I'm desensitized to it.
Yeah, that's actually been kind of a thing, right? Because I feel like, you and your brother both just sort of understand that, there's just puppets and dolls.
There's puppets and dolls.
Eyeballs.
And weird pieces of art all over the place.
Yeah, and I've had to
dolls of me.
Oh, so many dolls of you. So many dolls of you. Which is this whole other thing that I do, but it's portraiture over time is what it is for me.
Yeah, because you're also really big into photography.
Yes.
Yeah. You take pictures all the time.
All the way back to the beginning of my artistic endeavors. I I inherited a really cool camera, and I taught myself how to take pictures and edit them. Because, something that you make, especially when you're sharing it online, it's only as good as the picture of it, unfortunately or fortunately. So little vignettes and miniatures and dollhouses, all of that. I mean, either very small or very big is sort of my
right.
Sweet spot.
Never the middle.
Too big or too small. Perfect. But I way back when I started collecting dolls or customizing dolls, I found a little baldwin doll that looked like you when you were young, I think, 3-ish.
Yeah.
And I sort of, I got him little hair and eyeballs and clothing. And that sort of became what it was about, because there's this sort of idea that as children age, your 3-year-old leaves and your 4-year-old moves in, right? And they kind of keep progressing through. And so, and obviously pictures and portraits capture a moment, but there's this, again, tactile part of having a doll of a certain age, because then that doll also has little clothing and little toys and little food that they like, and like there's a whole world and a story around that age. And what's become really interesting to me over time, because again, I've made several of them in different versions, different sizes, for both you and your brother and your dad and me, it has become like, at what point is Gideon a new doll?
Like choosing which stages are
yes,
like worthy of
right, and
the frozen time,
right? Which again, like, I think an artist understands like the scrutiny with which you're looking at your subject, and it just becomes this like, what makes it's the same. It is portraiture, right? Like, what makes Gideon? Like, what is it at this age that makes Gideon? Is it his eyeballs? Is it his hair? Is it and trying to sort of spend time in that and with that, and then also like literally the challenge of doing it on a small scale. I make a lot of the clothes. I do a lot of the carving or whatever myself. So it's been literally a forever project, because, like I said, I started with you at that age, and you have aged up, and I had Toby, and you've both aged and you've changed. And like, I'm never going to stop that. But it's cool because it's sort of, to me, distilling down, the essence of a person in like a very funny way, but also like, they're just, they're my favorite.
Yeah.
They're my favorite. Yeah.
That's so.
I mean, I have a dollhouse of our house in the same way. I'm a little bit obsessive. It's like hoarding, but with memory.
But moments.
Yes, memory and moments and family. Like, I love the idea of these things existing through time in a way, and sort of both being a collection and and art that I create, at the same time. Like, I can still buy clothes for a 3-year-old Gideon doll.
Oh.
If I wanted to, or sew them, and or Halloween costume. Like, it's yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure the artists and the moms out there can understand what you mean.
Yeah.
Because I get it. I do.
I honestly, like, I
admire how much you take pictures. We've talked about this before.
Oh, yeah. Pictures
like,
are the same.
Like, it is so impressive.
Yeah, and
because I'm bad at it, but I don't even think I'm that bad at it.
I think
I've gotten better.
You also grew up knowing that pictures were being taken. Like,
that's true. There's always been a camera.
Yeah.
There's always been a camera in our life.
Yeah, because it's the same thing. I sort of am a little bit obsessive about capturing things and keeping them, and trying not to, like, I think that can get, not dark. Dark isn't the right word. I think every parent understands it. But, like, I like interacting with them constantly in this way. Like, I have the pictures, and I, can look back at the pictures, and my memory is terrible. But I also think that it's terrible because, like, I literally am just always going back and saying, like, oh, I'll just pull up the picture. Like, when did we stay there? What year was that? Like, I will always go to a picture first before my own memory, because that's just how it works, and that was always the same thing, like taking pictures, uploading them, putting them into folders and organizing them. Like, it's a lot of work, but Yeah. Yeah. I like doing it. I imagine one day it might be an art exhibit. Like all of this, like I have a vision of what it could be, and I think it's interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I guess going into that, we don't have to get into it a lot, but it ties into the next question.
Okay.
What do you think is next for Kat Caro artistically?
What a great question.
Yeah. You've accomplished a lot.
Thank you.
And you've done so many cool things.
Thanks.
And especially recently, we've dived into whole new worlds and realms of work.
Worlds, yeah.
Having Made of Paper, put out into the world and funded Kickstarter wise. Yeah. And that was a success for us. It was so wonderful. With PAC evolving and changing and being completely, informed by your work now as well. What do you want to do next?
What do I want to do next? Well,
what do you think is next? What's coming up?
It's incredible how much I don't think about it. But I have a very favorite quote from David Bowie, which I'm gonna butcher because I haven't really memorized. But it's the idea that like when you're just out of your, there's like, the idea that when you're comfortable or just out of your depth, when you feel like you can't quite touch the bottom, like you're just out of your depth, like that's where art is made, right? Like you have to kind of push yourself out of the comfort zone. And I do feel like I do that all the time. Oh, sure, I'll make this and I'll make that. And, that's the beauty of my job. Like it changes all the time. And I love that about it. It's exciting. And so, the next semester of PAC is what's next, in summer and Humble Materials, there's another show. So I'm looking forward to all of those things. To be very honest, like I do feel like I'm in the place where I sort of do want to pull everything back with my own art and sort of figure out what do I want to make now. I'm kind of interested in like getting a little bit smaller for a while and working on puppets or puppet commissions. Maybe even I would really like to make some art dolls, like artist dolls, like just fully sculpted by me, that I think I want to work on and sort of like pull back and see like what is next, because the film was incredible, but I think, I was so out of my depth technically that I would love to collaborate in the future with other people who know more about those things so that I could do more of my thing, always. But I'm not quite sure yet. I
mean, you got your start with commission work.
Yeah.
So like going back to that is really interesting because like when was the last time you've properly done that?
It's been a while. Yeah. It has been a while. Yeah. I used to only work on commission. And, both for dolls and like I said, prototypes and things like that. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in like making sure that the world knows that I'm here and maybe like it's fun to take other people's ideas and interpret them because I think that's a challenge in a different way. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of, right now is like a lull period. So my brain is kind of quiet in a good way, but
everybody needs that now and then.
Yeah. I do actually really want to like get the camera out and take some pictures and sort of work on the dollhouse. Maybe, I don't know, something little.
Got little projects going on all the time.
Big things. Yeah. Yes. I have a lot of forever projects, which is how my brain works. Yeah.
What is one of those forever projects?
Well,
if you want to share.
Sure. I have the dolls of us, the portrait dolls that I keep changing. There's a new set of them that I want to make. And there's the doll house of our house that has a lot of structural stuff I have to finish. And that is, another ridiculous project that just is ongoing. Yeah.
Lovely.
Thanks.
That's exciting. I think I was telling this to you not too long ago, but I really want to see you in a more directorial position with theater. Because I think, especially being involved with it for so long now.
Yeah.
You have such a clear artistic vision.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know what you want.
Yeah.
You know what you want to make.
Yeah.
You know how you want it to look.
Yeah.
You know how you want it to move.
Yeah.
That's such a pivotal point of view.
Yeah.
In theater.
Yeah.
That like some directors have to work to have, or like
right.
learn as the process is going.
Right.
And often don't, make puppetry and like make
Right.
scenes.
Right.
I just want to know what it'd be like for you to be on the other end of that.
I'd like to know that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, especially with puppets, I like to build them and I don't like to perform them.
Right.
I have no impulse to perform them other than to, make sure that they work.
Yeah.
It's so much more interesting to me to hand them off to someone who, has a physicality that they want to impart. I do feel like I've been in a lot of situations. I've made a lot of puppets now, even for shows. There have been puppets in a Humble Piece. There were puppets in a lot of pack shows. And I do feel like sometimes they're added in, and I think to build something from the ground up that is puppet based,
yes,
would be really exciting. And I am interested in that. What that looks like or is, I definitely like have these stories and ideas that I've latched onto that I think, that would be a really cool puppet show. So yeah, maybe someday, but yeah, I absolutely have a point of view. I do like, I mean, after this many years, I get that. I get to have a point of view. Yeah.
I admire that about you.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank
100%.
you. Thank you.
Because as a person like myself, was really bad at making decisions.
Yeah.
It's really, really nice to have you in my corner who is just like, yep.
Yeah.
This is the fact. This is what I like. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I think everybody needs a person like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's taken a long time to get there, but
right.
Why not? My opinion is just as good as the next one, and some like I do trust myself at this point, which I think is really important. And I think you also sort of have to when you're an educator of any sort, like you have to trust what you're doing so that, the kids are learning from you and they know, this is an informed opinion, so they can take it on.
Do you think it's interesting that your two children became performers?
Yes.
As opposed to like you and my father?
It's like an equation, right? Like art plus science.
I just want to know, like,
I think it's very interesting, but also I know exactly why it happened. I think something like PAC, which, you were in, your brother was in, even Blue Bond music program. I think when you do something like that young enough, and you were a little bit older, you were certainly older than Toby, but, you were already you were always extroverted. But I think once you learn to be on a stage and be comfortable and not be intimidated, like, I think it opens a lot of doors for you. I certainly, didn't have that. Like, I was the opposite of that. Like I said, I don't want to perform. And I think music especially is like the one place I don't go. Like, I really don't have much, other than appreciation of, and my own music taste. Like, I don't really know, I don't play anything. So I think that not having an opinion about it and letting you guys do your own thing and sort of also not making it a chore and not, you have to practice. Like, it was never that. It was always, I think it's fascinating. I think it's interesting, but also it's not as far away as I maybe initially thought, I think, art and creation and performance, they're all in the same world for sure.
Yeah. And
it's cool. I think it's really, really cool.
I think it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It is cool.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me get to do that stuff.
Oh, I mean, are you kidding? Like,
and now we work together.
Which is a delight.
That's so nice.
An utter delight.
And we get to work with Toby.
Yeah. We, so lucky. Yeah. I couldn't be better. Couldn't be better.
And I guess along with that, how would you like to be remembered? I know it's a broad question.
Yeah, it's such a bummer question.
It's a bummer question.
Well, it's a bummer question for your mom. Like, it's not a bummer question for cute 20-year-olds that are just getting started. Like,
we can alter it.
No, it's fine. There's fondly, right? Like, fondly. I would like to be remembered fondly. Yeah. You know, I think that there's two prongs to that. Like, I'm fascinated, along with, you know, it's the same idea, you know, the idea of like hoarding memory and collecting
longevity.
I'm kind of obsessed with the idea that we're like made up of all these little interactions with other people, right? Like even people who you like aren't your friend or whatever, right? They're like, I worked with a girl on South Street in the 90s that wore Mary Janes all the time. And I was like, oh my God, those are so cool. And like, but like there's these tiny little like things that you take from people and then they become you. And I think as an educator, like we have this sort of like extra ability to put those little things into our students, right? Like I love the thought that maybe I have taught a kid how to measure or make a straight line or use scissors properly, and they for sure aren't thinking about me when they're doing that, but maybe I've changed their ability to do something or given them an ability that they didn't have before that they then carry forward, you know, and you never ever know what that's going to become, right? Or the idea that you can make this or you can paint this. So as an educator, I think like the more kids we get to interact with and give something to, like that to me is legacy, right? Like, even if it's not like Miss Kat taught me how to do this, like it's now a part of them. So it goes with them. There's that. And, you know, I think as an artist, like, I don't know where things are going to go. Like I know as a mom, my stuff is absolutely going to haunt my children and my grandchildren. Like I love the idea of like creepy puppets in trunks, and there's going to be dolls and like
an endless amount
there's just
stuff.
Like dollhouse with secrets and like what's behind the painting, you know. I just love the idea.
You're prepping a haunted house.
Oh, for sure. Like, for sure. You know, like right now, the beloved puppet, you know, she's
still here.
Full-size puppet, human, full-size, person-size puppet.
That we use for made of paper.
Made of paper, just hanging in the studio, and not in a creepy way by a hook on her head. But
it's not in a creepy way. But every time I go upstairs, I'm immediately like, oh, hi.
Hello,
beloved.
I mean,
because you're my height.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. We have a new neighbor across the street, and I like to think about her being like, who is that woman standing in there all the time?
Never moves.
Why is she in there? Yeah. Like I love the idea that things can just wind up in very strange places. That's delightful to me, you know, especially like the dolls of us, right? Like you're going to have a Gideon. I don't know. Like it's
you have a affinity for antiquing.
Oh yeah.
And so
it's my favorite. It's my favorite.
It's a full circle thing.
Full circle.
Where you're the one going to all these antique malls, buying all these weird things and being like, whoa, that's awesome. And then one day
put some weird things back out into the world. Yeah.
For someone else to be like, what's this? This is weird.
What is this?
I'm going to buy it.
Yeah. This is going to be part of my life. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Puppets and dolls and all sorts of things. Just all over the place. Yeah. And art. There's a lot of art. There's a lot of good art. I do have a lot of good art.
You do.
You know, the one thing I haven't done is a lot. I haven't made a lot of paintings, which is, you know, I can do.
You did that like early, right?
Yeah. I used to paint. I can paint. I do, you know,
paint more.
I should paint more. Honestly, it's, you know, what's funny is that like everything I do is so multifaceted, I suppose, that like, you know, I always do really enjoy painting things, but it's the last step in a long process. And
You've already built a body.
Yeah, it's so simple. The idea of just painting a picture is like, oh, that's, you know, that's nice. Fantastic. But also it's like, but that could be a whole other thing, you know, that moves and is articulated. And I never know how to do it simply. I never let myself do things simply. Trying to always push it, and I like to touch things. Like I really like a flat painting. Give me something that I can interact with, and it's immediately more interesting to me.
Yeah.
A sculpture, or not that I don't love paintings, obviously, but there's one artist, I think Dino Vowels, that does these paintings that have pieces that interact, like come off, and just that extra bit of engineering is fascinating to me. And yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll do some paintings.
You should.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I would.
And then just add to the collection of all the things I'll have.
Yeah, you'll just have things.
And that my children will be like, what?
What do I do with this?
What is this?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Why? Mm-hmm.
Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. Because great grandma Kat made it. Yeah. Whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. Well, that just about wraps up our conversation, I think.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. This is like so important to me. You are, you're my mom.
I am.
And you have informed me as a person, but also as an artist. And so, making this podcast, that was like the top of my brain. I was like, I can't wait to talk to you.
Yay.
And learn more about you, which I did.
Great.
Which is always so fun.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
But before we are done, I would like to ask you to recommend someone that I could interview next. I just want to keep adding to the list of people.
Keep adding.
And so
many people.
I know you know a lot of people.
I do. So I do think you have a list.
I do.
And I think that there are definitely people who I know are on it. Jess Noel.
Of course.
The director and founder of PAC, obviously. I think Monica Flory, playwright, who we've both worked lots with.
Wonderful.
But if we're talking about trying to pull in other arts, I think a great conversation would be Maureen Duffy, who is a jewelry artist.
Yeah.
And also an educator, and also, just very into like the Philly art scene. And she's such a cool chick and like a fun conversation. I think she'd be great. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Hook me up with that. Okay. I don't think I've ever had like a proper conversation with Maureen, like here and there.
Oh, yeah. She's incredible.
But you speak so highly of her.
She's incredible. She is an incredible teacher. I have taken her jewelry classes. She makes jewelry. She sells jewelry. You
made a ring in that class that I wear.
I did. I wear my own rings all the time that I made in that class. I would actually love to make more jewelry. Should I put that? I should go back and put that on the list.
Jewelry and paintings.
I love making jewelry. And yeah, it definitely was one of those things that I challenged myself to do. And I'm like, wow, this is something you just, learn and do.
Always learning.
A lot to learn, but it's very, very cool.
Yay. Yeah. Well, great. I could absolutely make that happen.
Yeah.
Yay. Well, with that also, why don't you plug yourself?
Plug myself.
Where can people find you? Where can people work with you?
Work with me.
To contact to then
me.
Make stuff with you in the future.
For sure. I am on Instagram. I have been forever.
OG.
Yeah. At Kitty Toes, KITTYTOES. I have a second account for doll stuff. If you're interested in that, that's at Melancholy Cat. I have a website, melancholykitties.com, which is the best place to see all of my work. It's got film, it's got theater stuff, it's got puppets, it even has dolls. And you can contact me through there. My CV, all of that stuff is on there. I'm on TikTok too, actually. I forget what's my
your TikTok handle.
Is it Kitty Toes still? Or
it might be. Let me look for it.
I'm still not good at that.
You had a TikTok blow up.
I did. It was my Emmett Otter Sylvanian family mashup, which hit big on TikTok because the people love Emmett Otter.
People love Emmett Otter because Emmett Otter's perfect.
Yeah, it's a perfect movie. It's honestly up there with my favorite movies ever. Kitty Cat Toes. Yeah, on TikTok.
Kitty Cat Toes with a K.
With a K. Yeah, with K. Ks.
Yeah.
All Ks.
All Ks all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And then honoring all the cats you've had.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You know what's funny about that is that that's not true.
Oh?
So I'm old enough that like my first email address, like I made as an older teenager, like, you know, it might have been close to college. And I was sitting with my friend Ryan, and it was like and then you didn't use your name for anything, right? Because the internet was scary. You don't put your name on anything.
Of course.
So it was like, well, what do you like? And I said mashed potatoes, right? So my first like Yahoo or whatever was mashed potatoes, because I think mashed potatoes wasn't available. It was
already taken.
But mashed potatoes was, right? So mashed potatoes was my, you know, username for a lot of things. And then it was something else. I do not remember what. I was signing up for something. It might have been like LiveJournal or Flickr or something of the time. And mashed potatoes wasn't available. And so I switched it to Kitty Toes because my name is Kat, you know, like Cat Kitty Toes. So it was toes like potatoes.
Wow. Had nothing to do with cat feet.
Right.
Nothing to do with cat feet at all.
Nothing at all. And like, yeah, I mean, obviously I have cats and I love my cats, but like, yeah, it's more about cat and toes. Yeah.
Wow. Little quick.
A little bit of lore there.
Little lore drop.
Yeah, and then Melancholy Kitties was my company. Yeah,
Stemmed
so
from
yeah, it kind of has kept evolving. But
well, would you look at that?
Yeah.
Well, that's so funny. Well, you could find my mother on everything that she said. Kitty Toes, and please make art with her.
I'd love that.
Reach out to her.
Reach out. You want a puppet? You want to make a movie?
Yeah, if you want a puppet,
you want to make.
She'll
stuff?
make you a puppet.
Do you want a doll? You want to? Let's make stuff.
Why not?
I love meeting new people. Love making new art. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. What a treat.
Yay. What a treat.
What a treat.
And thank you, the listener, for taking a moment of your day and listening to this conversation. And share it around. We're streaming everywhere, so give us a review, a like, a follow, share it with your neighbor. I was your host, Gideon Caro McDonald. This was another episode of the Philly Phone Book Podcast. Real art is made by real people. Thank your SEPTA drivers, and have a great day.
Over and out.
Over and out. Yay!